I have some questions for the speakers. First of all, I have a general question that could be addressed to all the speakers about cost and about the issue of the monopoly of these technologies in the future. So you can, Masami, you can start to answer this question. And the question is like selling the rights to use this technology and be very expensive, exclusive food. Should it be regulated to prevent monopoly in the future? Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much, Veronica. So very quickly, because I have to go very soon, but then the one thing about this cost is that there's an issue about cost and price, right? And then right now, that because not too many products available in the commercial sphere, basically that the developers are in the situation that they need to start selling the products. And then in order to have the return of the investment that they have already made for several years, they do tend to have some sort of ideas that the selling the products to the high-end customers so that it will be more luxurious, and then having some sort of expensive products. So it's quite far from what we are talking about in terms of the food security purposes and things like that. So at this moment, I would say that because of these economical situations, that the cost is, although it is going down, it is not super down to the regular everyday kind of cost. So this is the situation. In terms of the monopoly, that I am thinking that the cell-based food development, there's not so many things that are super hidden, basically. So the technology and techniques themselves are not that super sensitive at this moment. So basically that if you know how it works, and then if you have the equipment, if you have the systems that purify the water, and then put the ingredients and the things like that, then I think that basically anybody can do it, but the idea is that, okay, how to make it unique, right? And then the companies, as you can imagine, that if you are CEO of these companies, that how much information are you going to disclose? And then of course not 100%. So I think that there will be some sort of regular business situation about what to disclose, what not to disclose. But then at this moment, what my impression of the company is telling us about food safety related issues, they are very keen. They're very keen to learn that how they can ensure the safety of the product. So this is a very good news. But then, I cannot talk for all the companies. So of course that there will be a same situation as the conventional food production processes, that some companies could be very secretive and some company would be very willing to open up that information. So this is what I can explain. So the rest of the question I'll be very happy to answer by writing to EFSA, and then I excuse myself, sorry that I will have to go, but then I am very glad that those very young generation helping to put together this meeting, and then I enjoyed this opportunity to contribute. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye.
Bye. So, can you answer this question, Nicoletta, about the
Is the question in the chat? Which question?
The first question.
The first one for me.
Do you think this is gonna become a business protected by its creator, like selling the rights to the use of this technology and being very expensive, exclusive food? Should it be regulated to prevent monopoly in the future?
Thank you. Okay, yes, I see the question now in the chat. So from the EFSA point of view, being risk assessors, the scientific opinions would provide considerations on the safety. Now, with regards to the technique and the introduced rate, so it would not be EFSA in this case to decide or be consulted on potential cost in once the the product is regulated or in the market. So I would not be able to directly give an EFSA opinion on this, since a food that is expensive or not really would have to do with trade section considerations. What I can say is that from my talk is that the more we study new genomic techniques and genome editing, the more we understand that there are possibilities that are less costly to result in a precise and potentially safe product, much easier and faster. So this down the line can reduce the cost from decades of breeding to achieve the same trait and availability, of course, of such a simple technique, such as genome editing, to more breeders.
Thank you very much. I have some other questions for you. The first one, can you see the chat?
Yes.
Could you further elaborate on criterion 5 and criterion 6 of the decision 3? What would be needed to demonstrate a safe history of use? What would a safe history of use or a specific modified trait imply in terms of evaluation?
Thank you. This hits right to the point that history of safe use, as it has been applied so far, it has been considered not only by the GMO panel, but also by other panel. It's a concept used also in the novel foods, but in the risk assessment of the GM plants, it regards with the evaluation of whether there is a black or white, let's say, known history of the food being consumed. So you introduce a gene from a food that is widely consumed, a rice gene into soya bean, and rice has been consumed from that species for thousands of years. You don't always have such black and white cases, so you look also at the familiarity for the environmental risk assessment of the allele that is modified, if this is in a crossable species in the breeder's gene pool and therefore has also been in the environment before. It is an assessment that is completed on a case-by-case in terms of GMOs, because there is no such timeline as in novel foods that anything consumed after a specific date is considered safe. It is on a case-by-case. Operationally, how it will be applied as criterion 5, we would have to see. So as the EFSA statement says, specific requirements for criterion 5 would have to be developed. For example, when the function associated to the genetic modification does not exist or it pre-exists in another plant, and whether the risk assessment can take valuable information for that. With regards to the function and structure, currently it incorporates structural, biochemical, and sequencing methodologies to assess what the function of the new allele is. In combination, just to remind that under criterion 5 and 6 will be those applications that would be an edited plant with no exogenous DNA, a cisgenic intragenic with an integration in a safe location, so the risk of an interruption, if there was such, it would have been assessed. Therefore, we are talking only about the trait of the final product that EFSA would be doing on a case-by-case. No specific requirement in this case.
Thank you for your reply. I think we can fuse the question 2 and question 4.
Yes.
What are the main risks associated with transgenic plant? And could you please explain the reason why EFSA might reject an application for a risk assessment?
Yes, thank you. So, with regards to start with question 4, EFSA would not authorize or reject an application. It would provide a scientific risk assessment based on the EFSA guidelines under the implementing regulation, and therefore a potential risk could be that the intended modification has landed in a functional part of the genome and renders this modified plant less nutritious or less or more allergenic compared to the non-GM. So EFSA still has the comparative risk assessment methodology for the scientific opinions. Then the decision for the authorization lies with the Commission and the Parliament. With regards to transgenic plants, the risks are identified according to the guidelines, and they have to do with the molecular characteristics, the intervention in the plant, whether there are unintended modifications to the desired trait, and most of all, if upon dietary exposure to animals and humans, if the nutritional values are different for potentially pathways that should not be affected by the modification, if there are allergens or toxins introduced in addition due to the genetic modification. And this is just to sum up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Last question for you about packaging.
Yes, this is not under GMO, so I would say there is regulation that I have to check the number. Regulation regarding packaging is 1935/2004. That is for non-plastic packaging, not under GMOs, as well as regulation 450/2009. What will happen is if this packaging that is edible has been produced with biotechnology, but in the final product there is no presence of the microorganism or the plant that is modified, so there is not DNA from the genomically modified organism, this would not be assessed under GMO. It will directly go under the two regulations that I mentioned, which is under EFSA's guidances for food packaging, non-plastic or alternative sources for food packaging, and contact materials, considering exposure and recycling.
Thank you very much for your reply.